Hello everyone, I'm here with Ashley again, and today we are going to get into the covers of The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. This is my edition.
And I read it in the big anthology of Raymond Chandler works.
It is published in 1939, so it's pretty old, and my edition has 231 pages, and Ashley, yours has
175.
175. That's why you read it quicker than I did.
Sure.
So let's start off by getting into the plot. Do you want to read the plot, or do you want me to read the plot?
I'll do it.
Okay. Because it's confusing. So
it is very confusing.
Have you done it?
Wait,
before we continue, we gotta talk about our bookmarks.
Oh my goodness, we almost forgot.
I used 2 bookmarks. I used a Half Price Books bookmark, and I started off using this bookmark, but then I lost it, but then I found it again.
And my book was fancy and had a built-in bookmark, which I had never used before, so I used that.
Awesome. Okay, now we can jump into the plot.
Yes.
So,
okay,
have fun with that.
Philip Marlowe is a private eye, and he's hired by General Sternwood to investigate some blackmailing that is going on with one of his daughters. And so once Marlowe starts to investigate that, things get a little out of hand, and everything snowballs, and then there's dying and gambling and
pornography and racketeering.
Racketeering, not to be confused with rocketeering. And we don't want to give too much away. But.
So, yeah, we're not going to spoil anything, so if you want to read it, you're not going to get spoiled. We talked about how the plot is kind of confusing because people are dying and people are killing them, or people are killing themselves, and it's kind of hard to, like, a lot of the characters, I feel like they get mixed up, and like it's hard, it gets confusing with who's killing who and why they're killing them.
Definitely. And
you talked about how the plot is secondary to the characters and the description, so
yeah, the plot, there's a couple, or not a couple, but there's at least one kind of plot hole. But it didn't even really matter when I was reading it because the descriptions in the book are so good and you're so focused on these other things going on that you didn't really even notice. I didn't really notice.
Yeah, and he also puts a lot of detail into his characters and character descriptions and like the characters' motives, and which leads into the character portion of this review. There's the main character, Philip Marlowe, who's hired by General Streamwood, not Mr. Streamwood.
Sternwood?
Is it Sternwood or Streamwood?
I think it's Sternwood. Yeah, CJ read the book.
I did read the book. I read 100 pages, 75 pages today. Wow. We've officially derailed.
Yes, we have.
Hold on, I'm going to find it.
Sternwood, right here.
Sternwood. No, I keep... Okay, General Sternwood. Wow, we're going to edit some of that out. He hires Marlowe. General Sternwood, he's old, he's dying, and he hires Philip Marlowe, who is a hard-boiled detective. He is kind of, like, a lot of the characters are either, like, bad, they're either bad, or they're somewhere in between, like, bad and good. Like, there's no truly good characters.
Yeah, definitely not.
Especially Geiger and Joe Brody, who are 2 other characters who the plot revolves around. And there's also a lot of women in this novel, and you're a woman, so why don't you talk about the women?
Well, they're kind of, unfortunately, can all be all clumped together. There's not, like, standout features for all the women, and I wouldn't say that they're necessarily portrayed in the most favorable light.
No. And they're very overly sexualized.
Yeah, overly sexualized. So, they're always, the descriptions are definitely about probably their looks first and foremost, and that, and whatever they want to say after that.
And none of the women in the novel seem to have like a straight head on them.
Yes, they're always very emotional. Yeah. They can't keep cool. So it's kind of a shame. But I don't know.
it was part of the culture at the time.
Yeah. We're not endorsing that, but we're accepting it.
All right, let's talk about the narration next. It's written through the perspective of Philip Marlowe, who is a private detective. And because of that, he uses a lot of detailed descriptions. And being a detective, you have to observe everything around you. So he's constantly describing where he's at and what everything looks like and what all the people look like. And I thought Chandler did that really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Not only what's going on, but what might be going on that they're trying to hide something or going on in the background.
Let's talk about his use of similes.
It was a joy reading this book with the similes, and I'm not being sarcastic.
No, it
was amazing.
Chandler is he's like the master of the simile, because there's one point in the novel where he mentions the light hitting the rain as it's falling, and it looks like silver wires, and that just puts the most perfect image in your head, and that's one of the similes that stuck out for me. Another one.
There are a lot of similes. We're gonna also talk about their slang.
Yeah, that's what I was.
A lot of similes also went to the style and the slang of the book, and that's what made they're great similes in their own right, but they're even better because it's not anything you would think to say these days, like
cuter than a Filipino on a Saturday night.
Yeah,
that was a good one.
And my favorite slang in the book was.
This is so good.
Was my information is apartment 301, but all I get there is the big razoo.
So he really embraces the slang and the culture of Hollywood in the 1930s. It's in Hollywood, right? Los Angeles, Hollywood. Yeah. So he really embraces the slang and the style that of the time. So it's very good. So for our ratings, our final thoughts and our ratings, I gave The Big Sleep, I'm going to pull up the cover one more time, by Raymond Chandler. I give it 3.5 stars. What did you give it, Ashley?
I also gave it 3.5 stars.
So 3.5 plus 3.5 is 7. So 7 out of 10 stars, which is funny because our last review we did together, Slapstick by Kurt Vonnegut, we also gave that 3.5 stars each. I feel like I gave it 3.5 stars as opposed to 4 or maybe 4.5 was because there's a lot of characters in the novel, and I kind of had to keep going back and keeping track of who was who and who was killing who for what reason.
Yeah.
So that was kind of what gave it a lower rating for me.
Yeah, that was definitely part of mine too. I definitely often confused two of the characters over and over again and had to look up who was who. And I definitely had to write down who was killing who and why they were doing it because it was getting a little out of hand. And when I would pick the book back up, I'd have to look back and remember what was going on, which I don't normally have to do. So that was kind of bothersome.
But I feel like the narration and Chandler's writing style really, it pushes you through the novel. As like we talked about before, we don't really have to focus on the plot. We have to focus more on what Marlowe's focusing on, which is the people involved, which is another thing I forgot to talk about, like how this is such a shift from detective novels of the past, like Sherlock Holmes, where it goes beyond, police work now goes beyond the evidence, the hard evidence at hand, and you have to focus on motives and who's doing what for what reason. And through Marlowe, Chandler does a good job of explaining that to the reader and kind of giving us a new way of looking at detective work.
Yeah, definitely.
So we both gave it 3.5 stars. One more time. The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. I almost said Philip Marlowe. The Big Sleep by Raymond Chandler. Now it's time for the typical YouTube fare. Like the video at the bottom. Subscribe, leave a comments. And me and Ashley are going to do some more reviews together. Yes. So if you have any suggestions on a good book the two of us could read, let us know.
Hopefully we'll give it more than 3.5 stars.
Yes, hopefully. So thanks for tuning in.
Yeah, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.